Last week the news was released that AFC Bournemouth have a new principal partner, sponsoring the first team shirt for the next 2 seasons. This news wasn't unexpected, as earlier in the week it was announced that MSP Capital will retain their connection with the club, however in a way whereby the logo would be adorned pretty much everywhere at Dean Court, apart from the first team shirt. Now obviously this left vacant some real estate on the front of the kit, and with rumours doing the rounds that Bournemouth might once again be partnering with a brand which might cause controversy, Saturday at 9 AM was the chosen time for the new partnership to be announced. The press release, which was embargoed until a day of the week and a time of day which typically has the fewest users online, revealed that Cherries this season will be partnering with DAFABet, a betting company. So, what's the drama? It's just part of the game day routine, right? Yeah, some see it as that, but others not so much, because there's a worrying trend where football relies on the gambling industry. The grip that bookmakers have is tight and not going anywhere. The relationship has moved from a symbiotic one to one where football changes its rules to accommodate what is deemed an exploitative industry. And this in turn normalises a practice that can cause serious issues for those that partake in it. And as a result, this does fuel the considerable opposition from sections of supporters. It's a delicate and sensitive issue from which a number of conversations emanate, and this announcement from AFC Bournemouth, well, it was no different. And as such, it seemed evident that the club knew of the potential responses to the news of this partnership, as they did deploy a number of tactics to minimise the reaction. Firstly, the press release notably didn't have an air of fanfare like the previous MSP Capital deal. No smiling photos or handshakes with shirts being held up. Previously the tone was, "A pleasure! Great to work with local businesses." But this time around, it was dealt with a lot more sensitively, with a purposeful and factual reveal based around the revenue it will bring and less championing of the brand that they decided to buddy up with. Also, very early on in the press release, before all soundbites from the respective commercial teams at AFC Bournemouth and DAFABet were relayed, in paragraph 4 they were keen to underline that as part of their commitment to corporate social responsibility, the company will make a financial donation to the club's Community Sports Trust to support projects that help get adults into work. Plus, with the subsequent news of Joe Rothwell's arrival just an hour later, it did help to pour cold water over the flames somewhat, although the club won't have naively thought that these little tricks would spell the end of the conversation. And it hadn't, as the murmurings of discontent amongst some supporters still rumbled on. So, in this video, we'll aim to explore the moral argument of having a betting company spearheading the club's sponsorship, as well as various ways that AFC Bournemouth and its new sponsors might be able to dilute the negativity and increase the moral responsibility towards its supporters. Firstly though, let's go through the facts of the deal. As part of their 2-year partnership, the company will feature on front of the men's playing shirts. They're not new to shirt sponsorship, as they've been on front of the shirts at Celtic, Burnley, Villa and more, so they're not quite the unknown quantity we had last time in Mansion, but a brand that many a Premier League fan will already be aware of if they watch any football at all. Commercially, in football, betting companies, they have a lot of weight, as the amount that they can offer financially is believed to be double of what any other industry can provide in terms of football sponsorship. The sponsorship will enable Cherries to spend more on player recruitment, community projects and bricks and mortar facilities like the training ground, but at the same time, by having the logo emblazoned on the chest of each and every Cherry shirt, we will of course be promoting an age-old industry which has historically had a checkered past and one which faces an unenviable future given calls for increased legislation and blanket bans on advertising. But wait, the government and Premier League haven't imposed any bans on this, have they? No, they haven't, and indeed in 2020 the newly installed Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters actually weighed in favour of continued betting company shirt sponsorship of the league's member clubs. He said they'd cooperate with the government's promised review of the 2005 Gambling Act, but it would not support the banning of shirt sponsorships. Similarly, EFL chairman Rick Parry says that such a ruling could cause some of its 72 clubs to go under, whilst also commissioning research that suggests that there is no evidence advertising increases the number of problem gamblers. But campaigners, they want an end to betting sponsorship in football, and they've questioned that claim and say that adverts are ubiquitous and target vulnerable gamblers. Plus, given that sport broadcasts offer gambling and alcohol companies a loophole to avoid the post-watershed guidelines, it is deemed that this normalises the practice for young people. So, what's the reason that they're so adverse to a ban? Well, it's not rocket science, is it? It's money. Last season, 9 of the Premier League teams wore shirts with a betting company's logo plastered front and centre. Numerous Championship clubs are also in the same boat. Even if they don't have a shirt sponsor from the betting sector, all clubs partner with gambling companies in one way or another. Some clubs even have deals with multiple firms. And in the Premier League, it only gets worse. Whilst the top flight of English football is something which fans do look forward to, they also despise it at the same time. On the one hand, it's the pinnacle of football, but on the other, the journey of getting promoted is often seen as better than the reality of competing in it. Yes, it's a league which is littered with money, but it is also one where its 20 members are often required to effectively sell their souls to the devil in order to compete with each other. The immorality is everywhere. First and foremost, fans are being bled through sky-high shirt costs, rip-off food prices, hefty TV subscription fees, and sky-high prices to travel around England via car and rail just to cheer on your team. And then even when you do have a ticket, you've got non-stop ads for a number of questionable organisations in your face. If it's not on the shirt, it's in the programme. If it's not on the programme, it's on the perimeter advertising. If it's not there, it's on the website. If it's not there, it's on the TV, with Ray Winston telling you the odds for Harry Kane to get a shot on goal in the next 45 minutes. Even if you turn on the radio, you've got Adrian Durham throwing to some Irish bloke telling you that Ryan Fraser's shedding skin is 3-1 in the 240 at Kempton. That's not the name of a horse. It should be. Anyway. It's endless, and unless there's a ban, it's unavoidable. Indeed, some say that football is polluted with it. Now, whilst I'm sure that the hierarchy at AFC Bournemouth would love to take a stand, in reality, the smallest club in the riches of the Premier League taking a moral stance on the matter will not have the domino effect in football that we'd all like to see. Of course, we wouldn't necessarily be turning down the sponsorship with the intention of trying to cause a seismic shake-up of the football landscape. We'd just be doing it solely to adopt a moral stance. But would an ethical standpoint from AFC Bournemouth actually achieve much when we're absolutely bombarded with it everywhere else you go? I suspect probably not. We'd effectively be, and this sounds bad, cutting off our nose to spite our face. Morally though, everyone understands that it feels dirty to some, but even if the club opted for another type of sponsorship, in many ways it would still be complicit in football's immorality chain. Last season, whilst AFC Bournemouth didn't have a betting company as a principal partner, the club did compete and accept prize money from a league that was sponsored by Sky Bet. You see, it's everywhere. So, sadly, there is an inevitability to it all, especially amongst the smaller sides, to succumb to the financial monsters. But maybe, just maybe, there could be a happy medium by introducing increased awareness and education. Educating people. That's contradictory. You're accepting money from a gambling company, yet telling people not to gamble. Huh? Yes, I know. But where do we stop? It's not the only type of business that clubs associate themselves with that is questionable. Should we stop serving fatty foods at football ground? What about alcohol? Shouldn't it be banned at games too? The club earns money from sales of these products, which can also lead to immeasurable problems for its customers too. And that's just it. There are so many ethical issues in football, and there's an inconsistent application of morality within the game, even on the pitch. Therefore, it's actually difficult where to know where to stop, or even to start on this. Now, from my perspective, and it is just personal, seeing the name of a betting company on the front of a shirt doesn't entice me to gamble. It really doesn't. But if I see a too good to be true offer, then it might. And in fact, I was in the pub recently with someone that had a tenner on Mo Salah to get a shot on target in 90 minutes. That's easy money, right? Well, no, because he didn't. And he even got taken off after 70 minutes. And look, if you've got money to burn, great, it's fine. But if you haven't though, the struggle to make up the loss is real. And that's where it all begins. And in a recent video, Cherries fan Dan spoke about his issues with gambling and emphasised just how quickly it spiralled.
So it first started for me when I had £5 left in my bank account, and I deposited that £5 to a betting app and I put it on a 66-1 bet. And if you know anything about gambling or sports betting or whatever, you'll know how unlikely that is to happen. And it came through, 120 quid, just like that. And that gave me this buzz, and I hadn't worked for that money. It required minimal effort, and I truly believe if I had never have won that bet, none of this would have happened.
You see, it's the easy entry into betting that's the problem. Just like I said, for me, the shirt sponsorship is just a name on the shirt. It's not asking you to bet, and as long as we don't have adverts slung in our face which implicitly suggest that easy money can be made, then I'm probably okay with it. But once again, it's the collective and normalising effect that it may have that is ultimately the issue. And that's just it. It's a collective responsibility. Bournemouth alone, by turning down a sponsorship, cannot solve this issue. Now obviously we could have decided not to go down this particular route, but had they decided to drop any betting sponsorship, without the surplus cash in the bank, we might not be able to compete as well. And with vast swathes of supporters just wanting to see our club winning games in order to create some memories and legacies, by reducing our competitiveness, we might just be shooting ourselves in the foot. I can hear the comments now. Yes, I'd rather be penniless in League Two and hold my head high with the conscience of not contributing to the moral decay of society. And yeah, you sort of got a point. And I admire people with that view. But there are large swathes of people who use football as a mental escape, and the continued success of their football team, one which, even in the top flight, walks a financial tightrope, is important for their well-being and state of mind. We just need to remember that whilst it is an immoral industry, it's not being used for immoral purposes though. The deal doesn't line the pockets of the commercial team. Members of staff don't get a bonus for organising this deal. It's done for the good of the club, with long-term sustainability in mind and putting smiles on faces through success on the pitch. You know that promotion we just enjoyed, yeah? Well, part of that is down to immoral money. It's inescapable, and unless the rules change, we're always going to be part of it, whether it's on the front of our shirt or not. So this is why the club have decided to do it and maximise the revenue. But what the club can do though, whilst they're accepting fruitful sponsorship deals like these, is try to show some responsibility and deal with the issues that surround it. For instance, they could offer sponsorless shirts so that people who have issues with the sponsorship can still wear their club's latest shirt with pride. The good news is that AFC Bournemouth are investigating the possibility of doing this. Hats off. Maybe the club could offer increased awareness and education around the issues of addiction and gambling. The good news is, once again, the club are going to be doing this to levels unseen through the Community Sports Trust. Happy days. There could be increased awareness about the risks of gambling around the stadium and beyond. Sadly, the club, I know of course they will, and the club are going to be doing this. There will be some signs in and around the ground which signpost people to the various organisations which can help them should they have a problem. They might also be able to put something in the programme and the website in terms of the advice and giving people with problematic issues of the various details of the groups they can go to get more help, and they're looking to do this too. They also are looking to work closely with the various groups and organisations such as Talking Cherries, the Supporters Experience Group and Cherries Trust in order to continually support them and communicate their activities in promoting responsibility, maybe even offering up players and staff members to talk about their stories. Indeed, Talking Cherries with the club's support is one such group which will continue to do all they can to look out for the well-being of the fan base. Talking Cherries welcome conversations with anyone who may be struggling, and there are fans willing to talk cherries and share their mental health experiences to help and signpost if necessary. Maybe they could host special evenings where a sports person or individual could come and talk to people about the addictions and gambling and all that kind of stuff. The good news is they're actually receptive about this idea as well. So with all these things in mind, it could actually be that the legacy from this 2-year deal might actually be a positive for supporters, something which might just outweigh and supersede the perceived negativity and immorality of having a name on the shirt for 2 seasons. Whilst gambling websites themselves merely bang out a slogan to make it look like they are responsible, it looks like the club are actually taking serious steps to try and educate people to make a difference. If only the gambling sites themselves took the same approach, eh? Whilst they reduced the helpful organisations like GamStop, Be Gamble Aware and the Gambling Helpline to a little logo in the footer, Bournemouth will actually be actively and clearly signposting people if they have any problems. You see, it's all about taking responsibility. And I know it's so contradictory in places, but it's clear the club were tasked with a genuinely difficult moral decision, and with the best interests of the majority of football fans in mind, they took it. In conclusion, it is genuinely tough being in business and making the decisions which sustain careers and livelihoods whilst simultaneously promoting a world which has a negative undercurrent. It's a moral maze. But either way, you won't be forced to wear the shirt next season with the sponsor's name on. You'll have the choice. And failing that, even if you don't want the shirt, you can even buy some training wear with the MSP Capital name on instead. It might not actually be a coincidence this season that the club have decided that the training gear should also be red as well, because come the start of next season, in and around Dean Court, we'll all be wearing cherry red, whether it's the shirt with a sponsor without or the training gear, and we can come together, cheer on the lads to 3 points and get the Premier League campaign started in style. Bring it on, come on, you it.